So the other day I was pulling my hair to think of a new video idea, and it's safe to say that I didn't think of jack shit. Now, I did what I usually do when I'm in those situations. I either turn to a book, I turn to South Park, or I turn to masturbate. Anyway, so I did turn to a book. And I was reading this book called How to Steal Like an Artist. So I was reading through that book, and I stumbled across a quote that really resonated with me. The quote was, "There are definite dangers in thinking you can do everything." Now, as a self-proclaimed artist... Oh, did I warn you? I'm going to sound like a pretentious dickbag. Anyway, as an artist, I've always felt the need to take on ambitious projects. I felt the need to take on a graphic novel even though I barely knew how to draw or write. I felt the need to make a fucking game even though I didn't know what code meant. I felt the need to do a lot of projects that I now know that I couldn't have done in the first place. And it is safe to say that when I took on those projects, I failed. I gave up, I failed at those projects, and I just left them. So why am I telling you this? Why am I telling you any of this? What does failing have to do anything with this quote or this situation? Well, it's because every time I failed, I blamed myself. I was absolutely disgusted by myself. I blamed myself completely. Instead of giving myself credit for trying, or even trying to think of ways I could have done it better, or even trying to learn from the experience, I just decided to blame myself and make myself feel miserable. I bullied myself just because I failed at a project that wasn't even in my capability to begin with. Here's the reason I couldn't have done those projects in the first place. I didn't have the willpower. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the patience, and I didn't even have the willingness to look stupid. I just couldn't have pulled it off. And here's why I think thinking that you could do everything can be harmful. Because if you think that you can do everything, you'll just end up hating yourself when you fail, and you will blame yourself and tell yourself that you just didn't try hard enough. It is a very crushing feeling. It is heartbreaking. It is the worst feeling to ever experience. It's a self-implicit feeling. It's not something that is done by anybody else. It's not your mom, it's not your dad, it's not your friends who think that you're stupid. No, it's you. It's you telling yourself that you couldn't have... You failed yourself. You disappointed yourself. That's the thing that you're saying to yourself. So, what now? What if you find yourself in a situation where you took on a project, you realize you overshot your goal, and now you feel it's completely unachievable? Should you give up? No. No, you shouldn't. Because here's the thing, giving up should always be your last option. Instead, try lowering your standards. Try doing the thing that you can do instead of crying about things you can't do. Instead of crying about not having enough coding experience, try using the code that you already know. Instead of crying about not knowing how to draw a certain scene, try drawing the scene in a different way. Instead of crying about not having actors for a certain video that you were making, try doing those yourself. Try lowering your standards to finish that project. Because in the end, a completed project that reminds you of your mistakes is 1,000,000 times better than an incomplete project that doesn't. Because we all know that if you leave a project incomplete, you're going to delete it and you're going to forget every mistake you made. And that's why I feel it's better to have a project that is completed, but you feel like shit about it. at least that project will remind you to avoid mistakes that you made in the past. And hear me out. Even if you feel that you shouldn't settle for less, even if you feel that you shouldn't lower your standards because because you fear you'll end up hating yourself for doing something like that. Hear me out. Whatever you make, you will end up hating it regardless. Either through disappointment, through regret, it doesn't matter. Through comparison, you'll end up hating whatever you make. So it's better to make something and move on than to not make something and move on.